In 2025 and 2026, at least 11 scientists employed by the United States government went missing or turned up dead. All of them held top-level security clearances. All of them were connected to classified nuclear and aerospace research programs. The FBI opened a formal investigation. The Department of Energy said it was probing the deaths. President Trump, standing in front of cameras, publicly promised answers. They haven't come yet. But here's what almost nobody is telling you. This is not the first time this has happened. In fact, there is a documented historical pattern stretching back 40 years of government-contracted scientists dying in clusters. Under unexplained circumstances, whenever classified defense research reaches a critical threshold. And the pattern is so consistent that at some point, coincidence stops being a reasonable explanation. Stay with me until the end of this video, because the final piece of this story, the connection that links 1986 to 2001 to right now, is the part that no mainstream outlet has put together yet. To understand what's happening now, you need to go back. The height of the Cold War's final chapter. President Reagan had just launched what the press called Star Wars, the Strategic Defense Initiative. A proposed missile shield so advanced that, if it worked, it would make Soviet nuclear weapons obsolete overnight. Britain was a core partner in building it. And at the center of that effort was Marconi Electronic Systems, one of the UK's most classified defense contractors. Dozens of engineers, ultra-high clearances, working on systems that could track and destroy incoming ballistic missiles from space. If even a fraction of that technology was compromised, or if even one engineer talked, it could shift the entire balance of global power. Between 1986 and 1987, in a window of roughly 90 days, 11 of those engineers were dead or missing. The British government said, "Coincidence." Let me show you what that coincidence actually looked like. Vimal Dajibai, software engineer, Marconi Underwater Systems. August 1986, found at the base of the Clifton Suspension Bridge in Bristol. No note, no warning signs. No prior history of distress, the coroner ruled. Fall. Case closed. 2 months later, Arshad Sharif, also Marconi, different city, different department, found dead inside his own car. A rope tied around his neck, fastened to a nearby tree. Investigators ruled it self-inflicted. His family disputed this publicly and formally. A contract engineer working on satellite tracking systems under government clearance. One evening, without warning, he accelerated his car at full speed into an abandoned cafe. No brake marks on the road. No note, no known reason. The coroner recorded an open verdict, which, in British legal terms, means we don't know what happened. Then came Mark Wisner, Peter People, Richard Pooh, John Britton, each found dead, each in circumstances unusual enough to generate press inquiries, but not, apparently, unusual enough for a government investigation. Here's the detail that investigators and journalists kept returning to. These men did not work in the same department. They did not live in the same city. Several of them had never met, and yet they were all connected, at various levels, to the same classified defense programs at the same contractor, inside the same 90-day window. That is not coincidence. That is a pattern. Before we continue, if you've never seen this story before, that's not an accident. This is exactly the kind of history that gets buried under news cycles and official statements. If this channel is the first place you're hearing this, hit subscribe. We cover what the official record leaves out. Now, back to the story. When journalists started connecting the names, something interesting happened. The Ministry of Defense went quiet. Labour MP Tam Dalyell, one of the most respected voices in the House of Commons, raised the matter directly in Parliament, submitted written questions, pushed formally for an investigation. He was stonewalled. Then, in 1988, a former senior official, speaking anonymously to The Observer, said something that, Once you hear it, you can't unhear. He said the cluster of deaths had been, quote, noted internally, but pursuing a formal inquiry would require acknowledging the classified programs these men were working on. Read that again. To investigate why these men died, you first had to admit what they were working on, and that, apparently, was not going to happen. So the question that should have been answered in 1987 was never officially asked. What were they building, and why did they have to die before it was finished? 3 theories emerged from the investigators and journalists who refused to let this go. Theory 1, Soviet intelligence. If Britain was genuinely close to a working missile defense system, eliminating or destabilizing the core engineering team would have been a critical strategic objective for the KGB. This isn't speculation. Declassified MI5 assessments from 1988 confirmed that KGB active operations targeting British defense contractors were ongoing during this exact period. The KGB had both the motive and the method. Theory 2, an inside problem. Some researchers, including former intelligence analysts, have argued something darker, that the program itself had gone wrong, that certain engineers had discovered something, an error, a security breach, a deliberately planted backdoor in the system architecture, and that silencing them was a priority, not for the Soviets, but for someone much closer to home. This theory was never proven. It was also never properly investigated. Theory 3, coincidence. The official position, offered consistently and without evidence, was that a large workforce operating under extreme classified stress would naturally see elevated rates of psychological breakdown. That explanation does not account for the men who showed zero signs of distress. The men with vacation plans booked for the following week. The men whose colleagues described them as completely normal the morning they died. Coincidence doesn't leave a pattern this precise. Fast forward 15 years. October 2001, the United States, still raw from September 11th, is mobilizing every classified resource it has. And over the next 90 days, a cluster of the world's leading microbiologists, several with direct connections to government biodefense programs, began to die. Don Wiley, one of the planet's foremost experts on how viruses attack the human immune system, found in the Mississippi River in November 2001, he had attended a dinner that evening, left in good spirits. His car was found on a bridge, keys still in the ignition. Vladimir Paseknik, former director of the Soviet Union's most secretive bioweapons institute, had defected, was actively cooperating with British intelligence, telling them exactly what Russia had developed. During the Cold War, died of a sudden, unexpected stroke weeks later. Set Van Nguyen, a microbiologist in Australia, found dead in a laboratory airlock. The door had somehow sealed shut behind him from the outside. 6 researchers, 90 days, all with documented ties to classified biological defense programs. The FBI was asked about the pattern. Their response, no connection found. Which brings us to right now, 2025 and 2026. At least 11 American scientists holding top-level government security clearances connected to nuclear and aerospace classified programs have died or disappeared. The FBI has opened a formal investigation. The Department of Energy's National Nuclear Security Administration confirmed it is probing the deaths and disappearances. Senators have demanded answers on the Senate floor. And President Trump, standing in front of cameras, publicly pledged the White House would investigate. And here is where the pattern becomes impossible to ignore. 1,986 defense engineers, classified missile defense program, 90-day cluster, no official investigation. 2001 microbiologists, classified biodefense programs, 90-day cluster, no official investigation. 2025 to 2026, nuclear and aerospace scientists, classified research programs, another cluster. And this time, for the first time, the government is being forced publicly to acknowledge it. What is different this time? Maybe the pattern got too big to ignore. Maybe someone, somewhere, decided it was finally time to look. Or maybe, and this is the part that should make every one of you uncomfortable, maybe the program that these scientists were working on just crossed a threshold that someone very powerful wanted stopped. We don't have the answer yet. But in 1986, they told us there was no pattern dot in 2001. They told us there was no connection. In 2026, they are now admitting publicly that at minimum, something needs to be investigated that is not nothing. That is the first crack. 40 years, 3 clusters, hundreds of documented questions, and the same official response every single time. Nothing to see here. The question I'll leave you with, and I want you to answer this in the comments. Do you believe the 2026 investigation will actually produce real answers? Yes or no? Drop it below. Because based on what happened in 1986 and 2001, I think you already know what the historical record would predict. If this is the kind of history that mainstream outlets won't cover, this channel will. Subscribe, hit the bell, the next video goes even deeper.